Hey, hello and welcome to Courageous Business Wednesday. Oh my goodness, I'm tongue-tied today.
You got it out. That's
I
what
did, I
counts.
got it out. Yay. So today we have, as always, my partner in crime, Akila Davis.
Hello, and it's nice to be your partner in anything, and
Oh,
crime is
that's
good.
lovely. So, Akila, I would love to start with I think a topic that you have talked a lot about, which is decision making and that sense of uncertainty that we get sometimes when we're afraid to make decisions and
Mhm.
what that means for leadership. And so, with that, I wanted to tell a little bit of a story before I start your question. And the question is in the story. How about that? And so, about 2 weeks ago, I was actually out to lunch with a colleague, and the colleague was trying to make a personal decision. And they kept wavering back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it became this thing that even when people came up to the table, they would ask them what choice, they would tell them the story and then what choice they needed to make. And they were so indecisive and so uncertain that at a certain point in the conversation, it realized, we're all at the table realizing that no decision is going to get made. Like
Mhm.
this person is stuck. No decision is going to get made. And as I was thinking about that situation, I began to think about how often does this happen to us in the workplace that we get so stuck in our own selves, in our own heads, because we're afraid to make a decision or we're just unsure about what decisions we should make. And so the uncertainty sort of takes us over. Have you found that to be true in your experience?
Absolutely. And that is so great because it fits in what I wanted to talk about today, but specific to leadership,
Mhm.
seeking certainty. And what it really is a delaying tactic.
Mm.
Because from a logical point of view, actually, I'll get down to that a little bit later. Um, but what I wanted to talk about today was that the McKinsey research says that decision delays is a is the what it's the leading cause of failed transformations.
I believe that. Oh my
Uh,
gosh. My own experience in and out of organizations and also as an employee, as a consultant, I would say that is 100% true.
Absolutely. And in my decades of working, and
Mhm.
I mean, I've gone from system implementations when computers were new. I've worked in the financial field. I've worked in HR. It's something that is consistent.
Mhm.
Okay. So I wanted to dig into that again. And, you know, we can identify it. And I want to just repeat it one more for our listeners. And I want them to hear it with the lens of saying, has this ever happened? Have I ever noticed this, witnessed this in any of the companies that I work for? Because once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I would definitely okay, I'll reread this again. And basically what they say is the biggest cause of failed transformations is delayed decisions. So what happens because of that? Many, many things happen. The opportunity passes you by. You become number second, number two in the market rather than number three. And sometimes it can cause a catastrophic difference to the company. So, what is behind decision delay? And that, to me, is the big question. And there may be many reasons, but two of the biggest is what I wanted to talk about today. But before we do that, I'd like to understand or just state what it is, what's the environment like in which leaderships have to make these decisions. Okay, because it's only fair that we put it in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not only important to put it in perspective, but almost paint the picture of the environment that really exists in this in the ecosystem of being afraid. I think that's what it is, being afraid to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
At times, people procrastinate by making no decision, and making no decision is a decision. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I think a
It
lot of
really
people,
is. And
yeah,
people don't seem to see it
see
that way,
that.
but it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's a decision, like not making the decision is making a decision. And I think that's the big thing that sometimes people forget. They don't
Mhm.
recognize that. And the other, as you're talking about that environment, I'm just thinking about, especially in high pressure, high stakes, where things are happening so quickly, which is where we all live right now.
Yes,
We've gone
absolutely.
we've gone from a situation where we had time to be able to research and analyze data to now we don't have that time because there's so much information flying at us, so many things happening at once, even on the news. You could
Yes.
live a lifetime in an hour based on just what goes on in the news.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And so when you think about leaders making decisions, and this refers to leaders at every level.
Yes.
Whatever decision they're making at whatever level, it is complex
Yes.
because it not only have likely technology and systems and it involves people. That's why they're called leaders. They're leading people.
Mhm.
So you have that people involvement, and they have to reach a specific goal to achieve their organization's goals.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, when we're personal decisions like this person is difficult, the person you mentioned in your story is difficult enough. If you look at this in context of how much more complex it is, even if you are a first-time manager or in just a line management position, you can see how difficult it is. And one of my big bugaboos is they do not get any training at that level. What was it? Only 47% of people in management have been trained for it. Most
Yeah.
of them, and especially the first lines, get promoted because of their performance. You know,
Yeah, yeah. It's tenure and performance
yes.
that creates
And
a
I don't
promotion in
think
a lot of cases. Yeah.
that's right. So, given that, one of the things that is probably the biggest issue is that here's this manager having to make a decision on that is going to impact their reputation, their job,
Mm.
and probably the company. Okay. And of course, the people whom they are managing.
Hmm.
And to make that kind of decision, it's taking a huge risk at every one of those levels. And for me, there's, I've been in consulting business for a long, long time now. You hear a lot of people say, oh, yes, our organization have um, psychological safety. But in reality, they say it. But when they say it when things are going right, but when something goes wrong, they're very unforgiving.
Mm.
Okay. And so the disconnect between what they say and what they do, people do not feel psychologically safe to take the risk that would cause that progress when they're feeling uncertain. But it's like, okay, yeah, actually, when you think about it logically, we know you can never get certainty from data. You can
Mm.
get too little data, You can get too much data, but you will never get the exact right, perfect data that you need to make a decision. So looking for that certainty in data is more harmful, as McKinley say, than it is to make a decision and get something done.
Yeah, especially when, I love the point you made about the psychological safety, because that made me think of something, which is not only do companies talk about psychological safety, but people are watching the organization to see if it's true, if it's
Mm-hmm.
real. And most of the time, you can talk a good game about how you trust and value and you want people to give feedback and criticism in an organization. But when one person sees the consequence
Mm-hmm.
of what happens when a colleague gives that feedback or gives that critique, and they get either shut down or they get what is it? They could get fired, or they could just basically be ostracized in the
Yes.
organization. What ends up happening is that's really like the hot stove moment, is what
Mm-hmm.
I call it. Like when we were kids and
Yeah.
mom says, "Don't touch the stove, it's hot." And then you touch the stove, and then, or you see a sibling touch the stove and you see their reaction and you go, "Okay, I'm never going to touch the stove."
Oh,
Even
yes.
if the stove is not hot, you're still not going to touch the stove because you have that memory of
Exactly.
that burn, or you have the memory of watching someone else get burned. So in that case, what is something that you recommend for people to do when they've either experienced that in another organization or they're seeing it in the current organization? How do they get to the point where they make a decision with that
Well,
fear in place?
well, here is what I think is an absolutely great suggestion.
Mm.
Okay. And one is every single leader from the first line to the CEO have the opportunity to create psychological safety in their team. Okay. They can say, whatever you say here, it's safe. You're not going to be punished. And then practice that. So if every leader start looking at their team and saying, yes, we're going to have psychological safety as part of this team, right? And model that behavior so there is no feedback. What do you think is going to happen in the organization?
So when they model that behavior of showing that it is actually safe, people are going to be willing to speak up more. They're going to be willing to have those difficult conversations.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that will help them to make better decisions because we all know, and research has proved this, that a diversified team makes better decisions because you have many voices coming in.
Mhm.
What's happening now is you have leaders who, because they don't feel psychologically safe, they have a team that is not a team. It's a team of people doing their own jobs, but they're not and supposedly working together for a common goal, but there's no real interaction. There is no real psychological safety. There's no real sharing, right? So when the leader asks something or when he doesn't hear from his people, he's thinking, okay, they agree with me.
Mhm.
Nobody's saying anything different, so they agree with me. What that leader doesn't do is take the silence as data. They're waiting for data, but they're ignoring the human data. Because what those people are saying by staying silent is A, I don't feel safe to give you my opinion. B, um, I've given you my opinion in at different times and it's been ignored.
Mhm.
Or three is that if I give you my opinion, there's so much pushback to it that it's not worth it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that leader is depriving himself or herself of a very important source of data coming in. And the burden falls on them to make the decision all alone. They don't make it because they don't have the perfect data, and transformation fails.
Yeah, I think that that's an excellent point. And I would say the other piece of that is when most people, and I would say at one point in my life, I've probably had that same thought,
Mhm.
that psychological safety needs to be comfortable. And the truth is, psychological
No,
safety is not comfortable.
no.
It's not creating a comfortable environment for people. It's creating an environment that people can be open and tell the truth in the uncomfort, in
Yeah,
the discomfort, I should say, that people are actually able to speak truth, even though it's uncomfortable. And I think that's where there's some confusion around what psychological safety is. I think a lot of times people think it's, oh, we're just going to make everybody comfortable. Oh, we're just going to be like, we're all going to love each other and be happy together. And that's not safety. That's false
no,
harmony.
yes. And the other point to that is people think part of psychological safety is when they get heard, this is from the other side, when
Mhm.
they get heard, the company should do something about it or their
Right.
boss. And that may not be possible for whatever reasons. So, psychological safety for that, in my mind, is saying, yes, I've heard you, but here are the concrete reasons why we wouldn't be able to do that now. Okay.
Mhm.
But we'll put it in there if it's ever possible, and we hear from more people that this is important to them, we will look at what we can do with it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I had an experience once. I was working in the oil patch, and we had a new CEO come in, and I was part of the organization at that time. I was an internal auditor, operations auditor. So I would go to all of the 5 different companies under the umbrella, figure out what was going on, what was wrong, help them to come up with solutions. And when he coming in, I thought, he's going to be brand new to this. There's a lot of things I'm sure he doesn't know at the worker level. So I made an appointment with him. And I went and I told him my thoughts. And he said, those are good. He said, I can't do anything about it right now, he said, but within the next 4 years, you can expect to see some changes. And 4 years later, to really just about everything I had brought up, there was changes for the better in them.
Hmm.
That created such a sense of psychological safety. Whenever I ran into him, it was always so easy to say hello and have a little chat. I never realized at the time the privilege of having that.
Yeah. And the trust that he built by
Yes,
that
yes,
that honest conversation with you. And I think a lot of times leaders avoid those conversations because again, it's an uncomfortable conversation. Like in the
yes.
moment, to hear someone, like in your example, where
Mhm.
you're giving him really good, solid advice on things
Yeah,
that could change or improve. And to have someone say to you, not only I hear you, but what you're saying to me is truthful and honest, but I'm not in a position to fix that now. Or
yeah,
these factors are in place that are going to make it difficult for me to do those things. But over the course of time, I think we can do it.
yes,
That's the piece that I think people are afraid to have that conversation because we live in such a instant gratification world where
yes,
people are like, you gave me the magic bullet. And so I have to be able to use it right now, as opposed to recognizing you may have given me the magic bullet, but I don't have the device
I
built.
don't have the gun.
Right. Well, I didn't want to say that, but yes, I don't have the gun built to be able to use it. And so it's going to take me time to build what I need to build in order to use what you've given me. That's a real honest conversation.
Yes.
And I think also too on the flip side of that, I think a lot of times people don't want to hear that. They want so much for the change to happen right now.
Mhm.
They don't want to hear about the red tape, the delays, the infrastructure issues, but yet those are the things they need to hear in order to recognize that that change isn't going to happen now, but let's build the building blocks,
Yes.
make that change.
And that brings me to another potential solution for these teams
Mm,
is we both work with motivational maps.
yes.
In order for a team to understand who they are and what's really important to them, the motivational maps brings that to them.
Mm,
But more than that, it takes it gives leadership the awareness of how they feel and what they feel and their voice.
mhm.
Okay. And again, when something like that happens and you understand, well, one of the things that's important to us is helping that team to understand each other. Because what causes conflicts quite often in teams is conflicting motivators.
Mm,
And what we can help them understand is yes, you do have conflicting motivators. This is not personal. It's not that this person doesn't like you or you don't like them. It's just you're motivated differently. But here's what they're bringing to the team that is very important. And once they understand that, they're able to accept the other person much better. And we also teach them techniques where they can start helping each other in their work. And all of a sudden, they are a team that can exponentially increase their productivity because they're working towards the same thing. They will step in to help somebody who's having problem. Somebody is away. It's not an issue. I will step in there and do my best because they're working as a team.
yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think, is what is really important in teams because if you understand your team and you can help shape what that team is doing. Basically, you bring the issue to the team and says, here's what we have to do. Here's what's going on.
Mm,
Here's the data we have. What ideas do you bring to the table? And you could get 9 potential point of views because there's 9 motivators, right?
yeah.
And they will be different enough that the team can discuss it. But how much longer do we have?
Just a few more minutes.
Okay. In that case, I also want to bring up conversations that they could have. And a good leader could do this in each meeting. And I think it would be very, very valuable. Number one, they could have the conversation compass discussion. And what
Say
that means,
more. Yeah, say more about
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's, the
Hmm.
northwest,
Yeah,
east,
yeah.
south compass. So the north question could be, what is the truth that we are avoiding?
Mm,
And it
that's
would
a
be,
good north.
yeah, it would be really interesting to hear what everybody thinks.
Hmm.
You know, the East question is how does this show up in the leader and in the team?
Mm,
You know?
hmm.
And then the South question is what system rewards delay?
Mm, that's a good one.
And then the West, of course, is what is one courageous next step? And, I love this because it fits in with our courageous overall show,
Hmm.
because it is important that we bring clarity to what we're doing and then take that courageous next step.
Yeah.
And to me, there is it also helps to solve that disengagement. It is growing worldwide at an amazing speed. That, the disengagement is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And to
And
just not to cut you off there, but to circle back to the main point of the episode, which is how to the decision making of leaderships in uncertainty. I
mhm,
think one of the things I love about those questions, that compass questions that you talked about, is that it allows for you to think, and then it says, okay, I must make a decision. I'm not going to have all the information.
mhm,
I'm not going to have a full agreement, as you said, and all the information, but I'm going to have enough information to be able to make a decision
yeah,
and be okay with, if the decision's not the right decision, I can easily pivot and, go back and figure it out again. Or if it's the right decision, continue down that path.
yeah. And there are three gems that I would like our audience to take away, our leaders to take away from this,
Yes.
is that those questions, they'll help you. Gem number one, it will help you to replace confidence seeking with clarity seeking.
Mm.
Okay. And once you got that clarity, you can then also treat silence as data. And whoever is being silent that you want to hear from, you can ask.
Mm-hmm.
And if that results in you deciding one thing that is being delayed, and it doesn't have to be the whole project, it's the next step in the project that's being delayed, and decide to work on it, you will have a successful meeting and week.
I love that. I really do love that. And I like that we're going to end on that note of really taking that small action, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know what the big picture is, but I'm going to take this small action and I'm going to make a decision that leads to that step, so that
Mm-hmm.
there is an action that leads to a next action. Because that's the biggest frustration I think everyone has in the workplace, is that there's not an action being taken. There's not
Yes.
something being done from all the conversations that we have. It just feels like more gathering of information.
More busy work.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Akila, I love this. And I love how you connected motivational maps to this, to really be able to understand people's motivators and sometimes their unwillingness to make decisions because they're sort of swimming in uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for that. And everyone, please, if you have any questions or if you'd like more information, please feel free to reach out, and we will see you in 2 weeks, because we are no longer a weekly program. And so we will see you in 2 weeks with a new topic. And basically, what I will say to end is, we want to make sure that you go through your business with courage. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marie. Great as usual. See you